All right, we are now recording.
Great, thank you. Okay, and because I'm going to open this in a view format, I won't be able to see the chat until the end of the lecture. Please feel free to post your questions there or just interrupt me. Unmute yourself, interrupt me, and you can ask the question, and we'll go from there. Also, I am talking kind of fast, and I have an accent, so please, if you don't understand what I said, feel free to stop me and ask me to repeat, and I will do that. So my name is Lady Helga. You also can hear people call me Elsa. Elsa is my real name, but I go on say by both. Today I'm going to talk about early Rus Garb, which is included in yourself the pre-Mongolian Rus states clothes and accessories, and I'm going to explain a little later the reason why I called it this way. And yeah, let's go from there. So first of all, I would like to point out that Rus is not the government, or less not the united government until after Mongolian invasion. The reason why Mongolian invasion ended, which was called Mongolian Iga, is the reason because the Slavic tribes in different Rus states were finally united under Moscow. At the time of what we called Kievan Rus, that was just the alliance between Eastern Slavs. Sometimes you can see that there are Balts involved, some Western Slavs, some Southern Slavs. So I just wanted to show you the map on how unclear it is where the borders end at that time period. Until pretty much 15th century, it's very hard to say, oh yeah, this is definitely Rus. Oh yeah, this is definitely I don't know, Poland or Latvia or Bulgaria, stuff like that. So different countries were formed in different times. So when we're talking about Rus Garb, we need to keep that in mind, that it's not the country, it's just the union of different tribes. And this is how the map actually looks like between 9th and 13th century. Like you can see it's weird formation, which actually also include not only Slavs in that. For example, Karelians in Chad is Baltic nations. They are not Slavic ethnicities. Um, the Rus were surrounded by many nations, many ethnicities and countries that some affected and affected by trading, by fighting with. So there was some exchange in materials, um, politics, economy. So goods and services were exchanged. We all know that, how Vikings came and ruled the Rus, and there's a huge fighting about that, especially right now. But this is how it looks at that time. We can say, okay, well, those tribes kind of keep stuff together. They exchange um, the same, or at least close to the same language. They exchange close to the same culture. But when we go from place to place, we will see the difference in clothes, not only due to the fact that they're different tribes, but also you can see, so it goes all the way to the White Sea. If you don't know where the White Sea is, it's very, very cold. And the Kiev is the Black Sea, where it's very, very warm. So up to Novgorod, you will see the wool and the furs and the felted wool. When in the Kiev, you will see more linen and hemp and silk from Byzantine. So just from what I described, there was several materials available to Rus people through trading and internal production. By production, I mean that some people, the masters and their apprentices, they would sit and make something, then go trade it with Vikings, so they will go trade it with Byzantine, or they will trade it with anybody else who just came through the Silk Road. So they would trade silk, which they would not produce. They will buy silk, and silk is very expensive, but it is available to them. Glass, gold and silver, precious and semi-precious stones, pearls. They were having access to freshwater pearls, but not necessarily the seawater pearls. Wool, linen, fur, hemp. Fur, hemp, and linen were produced inside, and it was the huge transaction in that time. Export from Rus to other countries, mostly Novgorod. and Novgorod territories. Well, when we start talking about the Garb, we're running into issues, because if you think about it, you can see the clothes that were saved from that time. You will see bits and pieces here and there, and that's the reason why the cremation was the part of the burial ritual till 9th century. Slavs would burn people, and their ancestors and their family, and they will either collect it to the urn like we do right now, or they will just burn it in fire, and all you can find is some metal pieces that didn't melt. Maybe if you're lucky, some pieces of clothes and leather. Most of that was burning. Or if the person died somewhere in the forest, it was buried because it was already Christian by that time. From that time, everything probably was mostly disintegrated. So today in the research, I will show you there are many pieces that we can just guess that that's what it was, but it's really hard for us to understand, especially compared to later periods and from European countries where everything was preserved much better. That's a huge problem. So the only thing that we can actually go off is visual anthropology. Visual anthropology, if you don't know, is something where you look at the pictures and the visual resources, and you assume based on your current skill and knowledge of the sewing or jewelry making or pottery, it doesn't matter how it was made. And the primary resource that we have, unfortunately, is iconography. And this is the reason why I'm saying unfortunately. Iconography would represent people as saints or as the part of that culture, and it will be looking more Byzantine than it probably was. They fully covered in clothes. They would be have two dresses on top of them. They will have this Byzantine cultural I want to say appropriation, but it wasn't appropriation. It was more or less exchange, because Byzantine Empire was a very strong neighbor and had a lot of resources, and it was fancy. Why not? So saying this to say, can we tell 100%, hey, this is how they dressed up? No, we can't, but we can assume based on what we know and what we found. Almost no real description from foraging sources, meaning that there were traders, but there were no actual political connections until later, when there was nobody just go to the country and talk to knyaz, and knyaz is kind of like a kohen, or like a very placement king, like a very small ruler of a small territory. They won't go to them necessarily. And if there will be description, there will be description of the tactics and the wars and economic decisions, but there wouldn't be necessarily, oh, he was wearing this clothes and it was sewn this way. No, it wouldn't be like that, obviously. So that's what we're running into. However, I was fortunate enough to find some that was actually from Arabic sources, where they actually drew the dress of the king, which I was very glad to find. So let's talk fabric, because I want to talk garb. Obviously, most of the fabric was woven. This is some samples that were found, and again, you see that's pretty much disintegrated pieces. Some type of weaving, some type of fiber that they used. I am not very knowledgeable about the difference in the weft and the difference in the strings that they used. But this pretty much looking like that. This is two most common weaving. There are also what's called diamonds weaving, and there's more of that. There's actually a huge work that I signed to that paper, and if you're interested, I can send it to you. It specifically reviews the archaeology findings of the fabric in Novgorod and old Ladoga land. It's way up north, and the fabric saved up better there. Another type of fabric besides woven would be felt. This is, oh, I'm sorry. This is on top as well, a felt. This is just the wool that you took and kind of make a felt out of it. This is the knitting fabric, and they assume that it's actually the finger knitting or the nail biting. I don't know. They still fighting about that or have a theories about that, better to say. But yeah, that looks pretty much like that. This is the piece that they found, and it looks like it was taken off the loom and never finished, because this is the piece that actually starts the piece on the vertical loom, the weight drop loom, but it never finished because there's no weaving. And actually, there's threads that were pretty much tied, probably, so they separated between the front and the back. So this was found as well, which helped us because it tells us they used vertical and drop weight looms. This is something that we can see in the recovered details. This is actually the loop buttonholes, and it was linen fabric with a silk trim, but we don't know what is it from. Probably it's a sleeve or the front of the clothes, but again, we don't know. This was like some random piece that was found, but we can see how they did the loops. We can pretty much analyze the seams, and there will be more about that further, but I guess it helps a little bit. At least we know they use the buttons, which is great. Those are examples of the silk trims from Old Ladoga. Staraya means old, so it's Old Ladoga territory. It's way up north in the Novgorod. Obviously, they had no way to produce silk, which means to us, which for us means that, hey, they traded. There are not that many places they could get the silk from, and we can't necessarily find the whole piece of silk. More than likely, if they were buying it, again, because it was so expensive, they would use it as trims. They would either cut it or they would buy trims as is, like in the original state, to decorate their clothes, not to make their clothes out of. Another example of a random piece found, at least here we can tell it's a sleeve. That's how it was found. That's the seam that was used and type of weft that was used. And we can tell that it was actually wider at the shoulder, and then it would go narrower near your wrist. This is, we can't even tell if it's a man or female tunic, but you will see down the line that's actually the patterns are not that different. Here we're lucky. There was actually a dress found. It's supposed to be the 12th century dress. Well, it's a piece of a dress, but we can at least tell what it is. And we can definitely tell that there was a defined waistline, which was actually under your chest more than it was your waistline. But before that, it was assumed that the dresses they wore were straight, like a T-tunic format. This shows us that, hey, actually they did show up their breast more. We can see the neckline, and we can see different type. This is an embroidery that was used, and this is type of weft that was used. So, and this is the seam that was used to fold, to connect the pieces, which is also very helpful to us. Okay, another piece that was saved in 19th century, but now it's lost. So this is the resource. This is the book that was created by one of the historians back in 19th century. This is Knyazev tunic, meaning the king tunic. This is the fabric sketch, and this is how the tunic looked like. And this is his helmet. So right now, I cannot find in any museums the piece that actually was saved. So very possible it was either lost during revolution or just lost because whatever. But so in 19th century, this historian, he drew it in very well fine details, and we can actually see that. This is around 10th century, supposedly. Another piece that was saved, and thankfully it was saved because it's leather. It's a mitten, just in case you're interested, is also the part of the garb. And they also have the pattern, just in case you're interested. And if you want this presentation, please just shoot me an email. There will be my contact information, and I will send it to you. I'll share it with you. And there has all the resources that I used. So let's talk reconstruction. So those pictures are more or less either copy from the frescoes or it's reconstruction based on what we know. I'm going to start with peasants. So this is from this 19th century book. This is the warrior, the spear fighter, which is for some reason was assigned to a lower grade income. However, I see that there are fine details on the decorations, and it tells me that more than likely he wasn't a peasant. This is another non-decorative thing with the tunic, which is actually this is from horoscope, and I don't know why they would use the horoscope at that time. I did not do much research on that. We can see that clear defined pants, which is helpful, and not very well defined boots. But we're going to talk shoes a little bit later. Those are reconstruction from Saburova. She is one of the archaeologists, and pretty much she is the main source for a good reenactment. So we can see there that she uses that under chest piece, the under chest dresses on women. This is what's called panyova skirt. That's pretty much two pieces of fabric that are tied by the belt and they used as an apron or the skirt. I can tell you this is my favorite piece of Rus Garb. It's very functional. You can wipe the nose of your child, wipe your hands, and go do your business. Like it's the best creation. I don't know why we're not wearing it right now.
Ellie, to interrupt, I'm sorry. You have a question in the chat.
Sure.
Can I ask about the fabric?
Yeah.
Can I ask about the fragment of the fabric from 2 slides back?
Sure. This one or this one?
It's Robin's question, so the one in color.
Oh, the one in color. Okay. What's the question?
Do we know the approximate size of the fragment?
We do not. It was not recorded, unfortunately, but we know that this tunic was made out of this fabric. So it's hard to tell 3 yards, I guess, but this little piece is just a sketch.
They say they're trying to figure out the scale of the print.
Oh, scale of the print. It's very hard to say. As I said, this is 19th century book and it's a sketch. So I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't know. It didn't say if it was the real size or not.
And that's it. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you so much. Okay. Sorry. Okay, we're back. So as you can see here, in reality, the men and women tunic are not that much different. They actually the same, except that women can wear something on top, which is technically the same tunic, like it's the same pattern, just a little bit wider, and it's worn as an overdress. Sometimes you can find something that's like a coat, or they can wear something that works as a coat, but pretty much it's just a piece of fabric that you cover yourself with to keep yourself warm. There are different types of necklines. It can be just the straight neckline like I'm wearing right now. It could be tight with the lace cord. I just make like a common lace cord, and it can be a hemp cord as well, because they did produce the hemp and the hemp cords at that time, and that would kind of gather your stuff around your neck, but it will let you to pull your head through. Or you can have the opening right here, like a flap opening, and then you either tie it or you put the button on it. Unfortunately, I don't have a good pattern for this exact neckline, but I can try to find it and translate it for you, because the only ones that I could find was in Russian. And I did not try to make it because I am not a great person who sew. I am very simple at that case. Men and children clothes are pretty much copies. The adults clothes just different, and we're going to talk more about coats later. You can see that the clothes is decorated with embroidery. Please keep in mind that embroidery is not only decoration, it's also protective ornaments on you, especially during the pagan times. It was very important because they would represent something. They would represent gods that they would go to and pray for protection, and that that's what they cover themselves with, and it's in the same culture, it's the same strategy here. Belts would be either fabric made, which is made on cards. I am trying desperately to find resources on how they did inkle weaving, because I know they did it, and I did it in Baltic regions, and I don't see any reasons why they won't do it in Rus. But I can't find it yet. So card weaving, a lot of it, or leather, and leather with bucklets, and we're gonna see that more tomorrow. Sorry, next slides. This is more pictures. It's 12th century, so it's closer to Mongolian invasion, or during Mongolian invasion to be sorry, no, closer to Mongolian invasion, not during. Again, tunics, pants, we see a couple kaftans, and nothing really special or very complicated here. There's more women's clothes, a little bit more richer. This is a noble woman clothes, according to Saburova, and this is from 19th century book. This is the clothes of married woman. The difference between married and unmarried woman is covered hairs. You will cover your hairs as you get married. No, even if it's a pagan culture, it's your hair is your strength according to their beliefs, and you need to cover them to protect yourself and protect your family. So they would wear something on their head. This woman has a lot of decorations around her neck. Very possible I found examples where it's not sewn on your clothes. It actually can be taken off, so you can actually wash your clothes, because let me tell you something. If you embroider pearls on your clothes, you can't wash it. You need to be so careful. You can't work around it in the house. It should be something very official you wear, so you don't get it dirty too much. A lot of decorations, a lot of embroidery around your sleeves, like around your bicep, on your wrist, on the bottom of your dress, which is very important, around your neck. The headwears, we're going to talk about them a little later as well. Men clothes, again, same thing, T-tunic, and pants. The Rus pants that you see in SCA is not period Rus pants. I'm going to show you the pattern later. But they also they still fluffy, if you know what I mean. But the pattern that we use in SCA is completely different from what they would supposedly use back in the day. There's some representation on the stone and the wood on how the Slav people saw themselves, and as you can see here, there are open breasts out. So something tells me they were not as modest as Byzantine priests were trying to represent them later. This is also the warrior clothes, so you can see the shape of the helmet, and thankfully we have so much armor saved up because it's metal. It's no problem to find it if you're looking for it. But again, hats, necklaces. You can see this piece, which represents that the person is actually Christian, but holds the coat like the Norse people will be, with two brooches. This is 10th century king clothes that I referred before. It is from Ibn Fadlan, I'm sorry. He was from Arabia, and he came to Rus as a trader, but for some reason he decided to draw the clothes of the prince. So this is how he drew it. It shows us the very heavy embroidery on the back, the belt with some kind of attachments, also embroidery in the center, and long sleeve pants, shoes. So we know that the tunic were probably like a little bit above the knee, maybe knee height. This is noble princess clothes. As you can see, the more mobile you go, the more rich fabric is, the more accessories you wear, the more embroidery, printing, all of that. But in reality, the pattern is the same. You can see the same T-tunic. Sometimes they're not wearing belts because we can't find the belts they would wear. This is more like Byzantine style, because Byzantine would wear it like that. They would wear very wide overdress and no belts. Shoes. And for some reason I skipped the slide. So those are the shoes from 12th century, 10th, 12th century. This is made out of straw. This is all leather with embroidery. This is also, I believe this is made a mix of leather and birch, but I cannot find too much material about that, unfortunately. Parade clothes. Well, as I said, parade clothes is something that will be heavily embroidered with stones and pearls, and you don't want to wash it. Those pieces, what I'm talking about is the neck pieces, will be more than likely be taken off. It's literally the round embroidered with all the heavy stuff, and it will be put on top of your shoulders. There's a Laurel from the East Kingdom. She is, I believe she's also Russian. She definitely has a Rus persona, and she made it for her laurel ceremony, and it's absolutely amazing. I'll share the link if you want me to. She shares the entire process of that. This is from 19th century book. It's looking more or less Byzantine, and the reason why I'm saying that, this crown style is completely Byzantine. The princes in Rus stripes more than likely did not wear crowns. They wore embroidered hats. And that's the reason why you would wear a hat, not a crown. And for some reason, the female holding the spear and a shield, I don't know why. More than likely, it was some type of a representation. But again, very wide sleeves, under tunic, no belt, a lot of embroidery. This is how the previous archaeologists saw the translation between the garb in 6th century, I'm sorry, in 4th century and the 10th century. It's needless to say that Slavs didn't just appear. They were actually existing a long time before they were pushed to live in the lands which I showed you. Originally they were located, or at least there is a theory, and many theories confirmed that they lived in the land of where the German tribes were. And then they were kind of pushed by German tribes to go to the east. And during that time, this is how they were shown on several Roman pictures. This garb is not much different, but it looks like it was lighter. And the reason I'm saying this because the weather was obviously better back then. Embroidery. This is the samples that were collected of embroidery. Mostly it would be used the stem stitch, and it will be fill in different ornaments, or they will attach different pieces to it, like a metal pieces they would sew into. Here you can see the satin stitch were used. This is the braid that was actually sewn into the piece. And this is the part of a sleeve, I believe, or the neckline. And this, like that, something that looks like a nest, it's actually the gold work. They used a lot of gold work. So this is the pattern that I mostly use for my work. Again, it's very simple T-tunic. Sometimes for a female dress, like women dresses, I would add additional gore in the center, on the back and the front. It kind of helps to highlight the waist, and it's a little bit more comfortable to walking around. However, very important, and I learned it just recently, you need to make sure that it's landing right above your hips, like on your waistline, because if you're going to put this below your hips, you're not going to be able to fit it. And I didn't know this because in reality, this is a square, like a rectangular, and this is supposed to be your widest part, right? Like whatever your widest part is, either the shoulders and the hips. My shoulder are wider than my hips, and I never bothered. But I was sewing a dress for a lady, her shoulders are smaller than her hips, and I didn't even think about it, and I missed the waistline, and she hardly fit her dress. So I was very discouraged with myself. So just make sure that this is actually the waistline. shoes, more shoes. I'm sorry, for some reason got misplaced. So this is the shoes. You can see that's 10th, 13th century, 11th, 13th century, and this is like you can see the heel right there. This is 15th century, 14th, 15th century. If you would like to look into that, please do. The garb was evolving more into the European side at that point, so you will see more influence of the Western Europe on that. This is where it was like true authentic / Byzantine part. So this is different patterns and different types of shoes. They look very similar to what we see everywhere else. Turnover shoes, it's pretty much it. It's they did exchange their knowledge with their neighbors, so it's not that surprising, I guess. My pain point, kaftan or coat. Well, when there were several times I encountered people who would tell me that kaftan is the period clothes for Rus. Is it? Yes. Yes and no. So here's the problem. Kaftan is not a Russian word. It's actually Turkish, and it didn't come to Rus. Like, you will not meet it in any sources until after Mongolian era. So it's probably was used in a very high up end who would go to Byzantine and they would know what the kaftan is, because Byzantine were obviously under the huge with the they had a huge trading channels with Arabic people and the Persia and all this stuff. They would be wearing these kaftans. And there are actually some examples of silk kaftans from Byzantine that were found, or from Arabia that were found, and they are currently, they were worn by Slavic people more than likely, but it wasn't made in Russia. They bought it somewhere and brought it. The word kaftan, again, didn't come to Rus until way later after Mongolian invasion. We need to understand that Mongolians brought a lot, except not only destruction, but also a lot of words, a lot of food, a lot of cultural things, and a lot of armor and a lot of clothes as well. Rus did accept a lot of it. So you can see on most pictures that they were in the coats, which do not close on its own. They would be closed by fabulous, or they will fabulous, or they will be held by brooches. Kaftan will be used buttons, and it's a little bit more on your figure. And this is all like all this necklines and all this the pieces in the center, it's all silk. Again, this is coming from Arabia, and it's considered to be the Eastern style kaftan. So it's very important to remember. Can you meet it in the sources? Yes, you can. Is it completely super period? Not exactly. You would be buy it from somebody, so you can wear it, but so this is the silk Arabian kaftan on 9th century that is currently saved. You can see that the picture is not the highest quality, but like here in the center, those are the silk pieces. There are buttons. Again, Eastern style kaftan. There are more samples of coats. You can wear it with sleeve, but it would be open, and you would close it by fibula, or you would just wear the piece of fabric around yourself with several layers of clothes, which is also will keep you warm. There are other samples of here. Headwear. So we have hats for men mostly. This either represents the edge or it represents the fur. Fur would be sewn around the edges. It's very warm. It keeps you warm. The hat would be either knitted or it will be made out of felt. Like they will felt the wool and make the hat out of it, different pieces. That's a female, the women's headwear. So they could have used trims like I'm wearing right now. It would be brocade, it would be silk, it would be wool. They would actually sew this trims on the birch or the leather or the metal, like rounds, and that would be a little bit more fancy. It would be like a crown. It will be sit on your head. They would use the plates. That's number 8. This is actually the plates connected and they're tied on the back with the trim. This is number 9 is embroidery. I didn't find the actual piece, but it does look to me like something they would take from Baltic nations, um, easily. More embroidery and plates, more crowns, and as you can see, so as a unmarried woman, you would wear just the trim and just the crown with your hairs made in two braids or one braid. We don't have exact sources about that. And as a married woman, you would wear the cover like a whale, which is called ubrus, and then you will wear whatever the rest holds it. So I actually have a huge blog post about it, because I make a piece. I'm in the process of making a piece for headwear, and it shows a lot of research there if you're interested. More accessories, because accessories makes you bling. We already learned that, because the clothes is simple, but accessory what makes you shine. Um, this is, I put it first, that accessories that you will think are more related to Vikings and the Vikings nations like Danes and Swedish and Norway, etc. However, because they were in a very close connection, we know that the Vikings were like administrative rulers of the tribes in Novgorod and Kiev and in many other places. Um, they brought their stuff with them. There are many burials that you will find that the person was buried with his accessories, and you will find a Thor hammer, or you will find a Thor feature, or anything else that more close to their religion. But nothing stops Slavic people to drink from the horn, because this is the horn. This is the piece of the horn with the gold on it. Nothing will stop ladies wear the brooches to hold their coats. We can't find sources. Well, they will wear the Viking aprons, but they definitely could use it to wear to hold their coats with chains and stuff. So this was found in the graves. Necklaces, endless amount of necklaces. And the funny part you will notice, and that's what I like about Slavic cultures, any of them really, is that even after accepting Christianity, and Christianity was brought to Rus at 862, which was 9th century, by Vladimir, for very political reasons, they would wear crosses, but in pagan style. They would wear their pagan stuff with crosses, because who knows? That God may not protect us yet, but our gods will protect us for sure. So a lot of mixing, a lot of trinkets, the coins, Arabic coins. I found many sources where there would be actually Arabic coins attached to the necklaces, because your husband came from war or came from whatever he had been, and he brought you coins that he'd been paid for. Byzantine would pay you with Arabic coins in a heartbeat. So bracelets, different style of bracelets, wonderful jewelry. I cannot tell you exactly how it was made, because I don't know much about it. It looks like a mix of wire weaving and plating and casting. So just different resources. And unfortunately, I can find the soapstones, but there are not much documentation on how exactly pieces were made, because again, nobody recorded it till later, because nobody knew how to write. More necklaces. We can see torques that actually the Norse style, more or less, more than likely, was brought to Rus. More lunitsa. There's a theory that actually lunitsas are not as pagan as we can think, because or they were adopted by Orthodox Church and Muslim from the pagans. So there's a big research posted about it as well. Many different wonderful designs. It was actually very rich. This is the temple rings and earrings. Like, this is a temple ring, this is the earring, this is the earring, this is the earring, and you can see they were pretty heavy, but again, wonderfully made. More accessories that you would want to have on yourself is the comps that were made out of wood and the bone. And this is the belts, fibulas and belt buckets, bucklets, I'm sorry, and the knife holder. I could not find the knife, but you can judge by the form. It's probably the dagger or something like that. And even more accessories, more earrings, more temple rings, different styles. We can assume that actually different tribes would have their own styles and their own tribal embroidery and tribal accessories that they would use specifically for their tribe. Unfortunately, it's very hard to judge because the borders were moved so much. So fibula, as I mentioned, another fibula. This is the belt pieces, the button, and the belt buckle. Another fascinating thing that I found is that the Slavic Rus used the glass jewelry, like glass ring and glass bracelet and glass beads. I am not sure they actually had the technology to do that, but I'm sure that they traded a lot for them. Because in reality, there's not much information about the glass production until later when it was accepted from the Byzantine.
Elsa?
Yep.
Sorry. Temple rings, were they always gold or were there silver ones?
Silver, bronze, gold.
Thank you.
Any metal they could get a hold of. And you also need to understand, like, the richer you are, the more you can allow yourself. But the temple rings is not just a beautiful piece of your outfit. It's a protection. So you would want to have one. And even if it's not as rich metal as gold, you would still want to produce one. Those are the references that I used for this research. Again, if you have any questions, you please let me know and I can share all of this with you. Two sources are from 19th century, and most of that is actually the recent findings. The ancient Rus Eastern type kaftan is a recent work, but I couldn't find specific dates of the publishing. It's this century, I can tell you that much, but unfortunately, I can't tell you exactly what date. And this is my information. If you have any question, please do not hesitate to let me know. And let me exit the view so I can see the chat. Any questions?
Further up in the chat, Mary asked that you post where we can request the PowerPoint and class notes.
Right here. You can request it on my Facebook page or you can send me email. I put both of my email addresses. It's elzaproject@gmail.com or uglyeliza08@gmail.com.
I'm just dropping a link into the chat. This is one of the books that I've looked into a little bit. It is a Google Drive book, so anyone should have access. If you have an issue with it, let me know, and I'd be happy to fiddle with the Google Drive, but it might be of interest as well.
Yep, I have this one as well. Thank you. It's a very good one too.
Helga, I have a question. I saw that you described the noble women's clothing as having that apron-like garment called the panyova, I think you called it?
Panyova, yes.
Panyova, for both peasant women and for women of higher status.
Yes. Yeah, so Panyova skirt would be worn for anybody. It's more or less the daily clothes you would wear, especially during the summertime. Even noble women worked around the house. They would just have a richer clothes and maybe some help. Panyova is very functional clothes to wear. When we're talking about noble women going to meet somebody or for a feast, they would wear overdress. More than likely. Well, we assume more than likely. But Panyova dresses were found everywhere, yes.
And I noticed that the panyova had a kind of a pattern. It looked like it might be plaid, or I wasn't sure. I was wondering if you had any suggestions about specific colors or patterns when we're looking for a piece of wool to make into a panyova. what should we be looking for in the cloth?
Okay, well, that's a great question. Again, as I said, we don't have much information on the fabric. Can you still see my screen? Sorry. Okay, so do you see Panova here?
Yes.
So more than likely, the embroidery, like the weft they will use is it's something wool or very heavy linen, because it needs to lay on you and kind of needs to pull you down with the weight. It could be plaited. It will have used other patterns. More than likely, just the way the fabric is, it's a square. So the easiest, as I can imagine, is either the diamonds or the, oh my god, I'm sorry, just a simple one, when one by one. So you will play with fiber and make your own colors. The colors that I see the most being used in clothes will be green, brown, black, gray, whatever you easily can find. They definitely dye their clothes as well. So whatever you can get a hold of as far as resource of dyeing that can be used, that can be found on those territories, I'm sure they used it. Like, I don't know, onions, like a dry onion skin, that will give it like a goldish color. They could have boiled it with beef, well, I'm sorry, beet, more than likely, like a red beet, and give it the pinkish or like purplish even color. I think that whatever patterns we see on those Panova skirts is embroidery or the trim that they attach to it. So whatever you can get a hold of as a trim, silk, embroidery, it's your fantasy. Again, embroidery as a representation of the protection. And because we don't have, unfortunately, that much resources saved about it, we can only guess. I hope I answered your question. I'm sorry.
You've got
I
another
have
one in
a-
the chat
Sorry.
asking for the pattern of the pants that you mentioned.
Yes, I did. I'm sorry. Give me a second. I'm gonna pull it up for some reason. I thought I added them. Hold on. Sorry. Right here. My bad. I'm gonna reshare my screen. It's a very simple pattern. Come on. Okay, so this is the pants. Can you see my screen still?
We've lost your screen.
I thought I shared it back. Sorry. Oh. Sure. Here we go. This is the pattern for the pants. Like, you will add a lot of extra place, and that's
Still
what will
can't
make
see
them
it.
fluffy.
There it is. Now we can see it.
So right here, you will add a lot of space, like extra fabric to make it fluffy and more comfortable to move around with. Also ride a horse. But like in, if you look at like SCIDM patterns, which I use all the time because they're just simple, they would use like a wider square and then the smaller square. And that's how they will accomplish the fluffiness. This is like more period way. Again, we don't have actual pieces together. We can just assume. And I sewed the same, like close to the same pattern for Chinese Empire. Pretty much the same century. So maybe it was a very popular pants.
I have a question on the slide that says peasants. Yes, that one. The woman on the, if I'm looking at the screen, the far right, is that a belt or is that division from the top and the part? Is it two separate pieces?
No, it's not two separate pieces. It looks to me that that's what, because it's the same person who did this
Mm-hmm.
Saburova. They would sew it together. It's like an
Okay.
overdress, right? Right. Here's the seam they used, more than likely.
Okay.
Right here. I don't think it's a belt because belt is usually represented with the ties right here. From all representation that I can see, women would not wear a leather belt. I don't know why. I'm still
Okay.
researching that part. But yeah, so I think that's this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
You
Anything you would
mentioned
like to
that a
know more about?
laurel in the East Kingdom has great garb. That's from the chat.
Yes, I will find her name. Her name is Evgenia Pichneva, but I don't remember her SCA name. I will let it back. I will send it to you. I will share. She has a blog post about it. That's what I will share.
I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce that. I'm sorry, Jenna.
Lotta Mongligan.
Thank you.
That's her SCA name?
Correct.
I didn't know that. That's amazing. Thank
She
you.
is local to me. I was at her lauraling.
Oh, okay.
She was my vice rein.
I followed her on Instagram. That's the reason why I know her like real name.
She's
But
under
yeah,
her real name on Facebook as well.
Yeah, so she made that.
It was made for her.
Oh no, I saw the post about it that she made. I thought she made it. It was deers.
To the best of my knowledge, she doesn't sew.
Maybe okay.
I
Let me research it. I know I will find that post because I have it saved somewhere, and I'll share. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it was made for her, and that's the reason why I think it's her name. But yes, I'll get it to you guys.
She did make her Ogerla. She did not. She did the pearl work. She bought the deer as Christmas ornaments and put them on. She and I had talked about that beforehand. So I know that she put the deer on herself because they were Christmas ornaments.
Anything you would like to know more about? Maybe later, maybe something I can research for you. Like any specific subject.
Well, I was, so you said they use, for the embroidery, they use stem stitch a lot, or split stitch, or satin stitch. I'm just curious
Satin.
about the stitching.
Satin stitch,
Satin.
stem
Okay.
stitch. This is what this is what I see a lot. For gold work, they would use just like they would put the gold thread and sew over it. They would do the same for pearl lines. They would do the same for embroidery with pearls. And I mean, that's the most stitches that I can see. As far as decorative stitches, I can't find any actual information about it. And that's my problem. I just use like the most common ones, and I don't have much proof about it. For that exact period, like for earlier ages.
Will you be doing a another lecture on the later period?
If you want me to, I can.
I'd like that very much.
This is where it gets interesting. Any other questions?
have a question for people who may be taking this class because they want to make garb for the bloodbath event in Ponte Alto in April. Last year, I think there was a sew-along where every week there was an online meeting and people could share their progress in making the garb that they were preparing for the event. And I was just wondering if people would be interested in doing that again for this year's bloodbath and making some early period Rus garb.
That would be fun.
Okay, well, we got one person, so we'll work on putting something together and just watch the Ponte Alto Barony Facebook group space for some upcoming messages about that.
I was actually hoping that I could mix and match some stuff I already have, but because I don't know if I'm going to have time to make a whole set of garb for the event.
Well, and it can also be a place to sort of share what we're putting together as well.
Good time to socialize as well.
Any other questions? Concerns? Comments?
This was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Helga. I definitely want to pick your brain about kind of the blending of Rus and Salmi Finnish, and then swing back to Southern Slav and that whole. My experiences are just to study, as much non-strictly liturgical paintings, but again, most garb is liturgical, so it's very challenging. I don't pretend to have an early period persona, but in my head, I've got this like whirlwind of Byzantine and Finnish and Slavic, and I'm, it's not for right now, but I'm going to bring it up at some point with you, probably when nobody's watching.
Oh. Well, I will be at bot.
Oh, well then that'll be then.
Yeah, we'll be at bot. It is a problem because we don't have actual on-hand resources. Like, I am very jealous of those who's making like two-door stuff because they have all on hand. It's very difficult, don't get me wrong, but like they can look at stuff, they can touch stuff, they can go to museums and see that stuff. We don't have that luxury. We only have like, yeah, somebody thought about it and reconstructed something based on pieces that were found in 3 different places around like pretty much the entire Europe on the length of Ural Mountains. It is a problem. And all we have is pictures, and we don't know how real they are. And I mean, we all know the quality of medieval painters. It is challenging. So like, gladly we have good sources for accessories. Like, that's something that was preserved. I'm sorry. And another thing that I like about having a Rus persona and like persona from that region, trading. It's 2 huge trading ways intersection. You can get stuff from all over the world and say, well, I bought it, I like it, I wear it, and there's nothing wrong with it. Because they did do that. They would go and buy their stuff from somebody else, exchange it, and that's how they will roll.
Jenna raised a hand. Jenna.
Once the recording is ended, if you'd like, I actually found a photo of Lotta in the collar and the headwear and everything that goes with it. I don't have her permission to share it publicly, so if you want after the recording is ended, I'd be happy to screen share.
Sure. I think we can end recording at this point.
I will do that then.
Thank you.